Wednesday, and that means we've got a whole bunch of news to discuss. I'm Brian, of course. Joining me is Herbert from Brighter and Hans C. Nelson, an amazing power trio, if I do say so myself. We've got a whole lot to cover. We're going to be covering some of the news about Cybertruck being shown off in China. We're going to be talking about some rumors on the compact. We're going to be talking Giga Nevada expansion. Yes, it is real, and I'm very excited to have it. All this to discuss. First of all, let's say hello to everyone on this amazing simulcast. Herbert, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. This is Tesla earnings day today. Of course, this by the time this comes out, we won't be talking about the earnings call. It'll be done.
Well, it's live, so that's still a good thing. Hans, how are you doing today?
Yeah, doing great. Looking forward to earnings, but also, there's a lot of other things that are going on this week that really aren't attached to earnings that I hope that we don't lose sight of. So excited to kind of talk about some of those things today.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Herbert, what should we talk about first?
Well, first of all, I think this is a big news that happened last week, January 17th, right? So that's like 7 days ago, and it seemed to have just flown in the radar. There's a lot of news that continue to flow, and we just sometimes just, that's great, another progress. Well, what about the stocks? Stocks fallen, but these are pretty big news, right? So the first one here is you've got Giga Nevada, Tesla Semi, groundbreaking. Why did they seem to not do a whole show on this? And Tesla had a groundbreaking ceremony on Wednesday, January 17th. Separate high volume semi production building. This confirms the recent speculation. The video shows the warehouse on wheels, progress of the last few weeks, full speed ahead in the future of trucking. So this is the drone video by Zanegler, and I could play it in the background while you guys are talking. What do you guys think? Yeah, here we go.
Sounds good. So I'd say the reason that they didn't have a big ceremony is because they held one a year ago. And I think that was quite enough for that. It looks like the expansion is going to be a detached building rather than an extension of the building itself. Not a big deal. Shuttling batteries from over there to over there, not a big problem. But the fact that they've moved the warehouse on wheels tells us that, yes, indeed, this is moving forward at quite a pace. And they're going to be building.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was interesting is that since they're not doing it attached, I think that means that they're probably leaving room for future expansion of the battery production that probably will be attached. And so I don't think this is replacing any of the things that they had designs on for the internal structure of the building that they had originally planned. This is just in addition to that. And so it's interesting to see them, moving forward with that before they get the internal additions as well. And it really leaves the question in my mind open: when are they going to begin the next phase of building out 4680 battery production there in Nevada? We assume that that's something that is going to happen, hopefully sooner rather than later. From what they're showing us right now, it leads me to believe that that's not something that they're starting on today, but hopefully soon.
Well, I would add to that, as of my latest understanding from Nevada, which is quite a while ago now, they were not building 4680s there yet. 4680s were limited to Cato Road and Austin. They had plans to put them in Berlin early on, but with the shift in the IRA introducing battery credits in the U.S., they changed plans. So we know Panasonic was looking to build a 4680 plant in Oklahoma. That has apparently switched to a 2170 plant. So 4680s will come to Nevada at some point, I'm confident. We definitely don't know when.
Okay, so this is Tesla Semi. You've been waiting for this for so long, Brian, but then they seem to have delayed it for a whole year. Now they're doing the groundbreaking. What was your speculation of why it took them this long to finally say, hey, we're going to now start doing high volume production of this warehouse? How fast do you think that this ground will be, actually in high production? Because they did say 2024, right?
It is not impossible to get into some level of production in 2024. I believe the delay was the 4680 ramp. Now, the Semi doesn't use 4680s. It uses 2170s. But the 2170s that would have gone into it had to be diverted to Texas because the 4680 ramp there was so slow. We know in Texas they were making Model Ys with 4680s and 2170s, and there just aren't enough for all of Texas's production to be handled by the Texas 4680 production. So there's a lack of batteries. Every semi you build is 7 cars to 10 cars that will not qualify for the IRA credit because of battery sourcing requirements. So that's a big deal. That's, 75 grand right there out of customers' pockets. Hard to argue with that. So that's part of the delay. It could be that there's a talent shortage in Sparks. That seems that is a known thing. Can Tesla attract more people? Probably. Apparently they can, but it's not as easy. But I think the batteries were the real constraints because you got to get them from somewhere. And I don't know where else you would get them from. Yeah. So will this factory go up quickly? Sure. And it's not as complicated as a automobile line where every $5 counts as much. This is going to be, if you look at, I think it's Kenworth, where you can find videos of their assembly line, it is very automated. A lot of truck manufacturers don't have highly automated lines, but they do. And you can see that it is even still a lot simpler than an automotive line in Tesla's philosophy because it's not as complicated of a device. It's not a unibody construction, it's body on frame. And even though Tesla loves to reinvent things, that's one they didn't reinvent because it is apparently the correct form factor.
Okay. I'm going to give you guys a quiz, okay? I think that in my mind, there's 4 items that Tesla Q would point to that will say, look at these 4 items. Look at how Tesla they're all talk, they don't deliver. What would those 4 things be for you guys?
Missed
Roadsters-
deadlines would be one.
Roadster 1.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Hans. Roadster's 1.
Yeah, Roadster 1. I would say delay in FSD would be
2.
number 2. You have to put semi up there because it has
3.
been something that they announced quite a while back and still isn't here yet. Man, I'm struggling on what the third really would be.
Cybertruck, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
I know. Okay, so
Certainly
that was my
the
point.
500-mile range one, yes.
Yeah, that's my
Yes.
point. So my point being that if you ask somebody 3 months ago, what is, Tesla Q, and they'll go, God, these guys just talk all big. Okay. In the meantime, we had the Cybertruck launch. We now have full-scale semi factory being built, and it's actually going to happen. You got the FSD version 12 rolled out. It's not quite Robotaxi, but progress is happening. We still don't know when Roadster will come out. So for those people who put 50 grand down, I feel sorry for them, but that's interesting. So that's what the next bit of news here is, the Cybertruck. And I needed to ask you, Hans, what the hell's going on here? Why is it looks like this is real. I had to double, triple, quadruple check if this is real, but it looks like it is. The Cybertruck is going live in China. There is apparently 8 Cybertrucks out there. They're going kind of touring. There's this video of this person here doing a Cybertruck. I'm going to turn off because it's all in Chinese here. But what's going on? Why are they doing this?
I mean, to me, this has to be just marketing. I mean, they've got so much demand just here in the United States for the Cybertruck that there's no way that they can just meet that demand anytime soon. And so to me, this has to be just a marketing campaign that they're trying to get some excitement built up around the brand. It is, an incredible piece of design and engineering on Tesla's part. And even if they're not necessarily going to deliver those in China, they can certainly benefit from the accomplishment that they have. And I mean, if we're going to just speculate wildly out in, La La Land, I guess it's not absolutely impossible that they could eventually build a Cybertruck in China. Maybe this is a hint at that, because, there is a global market for this. If they were going to ship globally, China could be a place that they would do that manufacturing. But I just don't even think that that's more than 2 or 3% likely to happen anytime in the next couple of years. And so I'm sure that there are going to be some people that will say that might be what this means. But I definitely wouldn't go that far personally.
So I would take a pretty different approach on it. I was contacted by one of my patrons who is number 143,000 ish in line for reservations on the Cybertruck, and he has already been invited to configure his Foundation Edition. Now he's saying, wait a minute, they've only issued a few thousand of these, and I'd say no, it's more like probably 20, 30, 40,000 of them that they've invited, because we're seeing the dates getting pushed out closer to the end of the year. But what they're doing, what they can do, is they want to sell as many of these with that $20,000 to $40,000 premium as they can, and exporting them to China would be a good way to do it, especially if you're going to get it years ahead of the people paying less. It would be a prestige piece, it would be a marquee, it would be a halo. And so of those 143,000, the reason I'm not super concerned is because there are a lot of countries whose reservation numbers didn't come up. And if you reserve 20 to 50, you only got called up once, I assume. Certainly you wouldn't have configured all 50 this early on without the ability to sell them. And so I think it would make sense to sell them in China if you're able to do so at an absurd premium, and do it in a way that creates a halo. Now, I would say that also, even if you're not going to sell them, the excitement, the foot traffic, getting people in like that is huge.
I'm going to continue this quiz format. I'm going to put you guys on the line here. See how smart you dudes are. Okay, so what is the fifth? Our audience brought this up, and I don't know why I forgot it. There's a fifth thing that was very, very delayed.
Fifth thing that was delayed. Oh, is it burnt hair?
I mean, the X did take a long time. I remember that.
Come on. This is so obvious, guys.
The fifth thing that's massively delayed. Oh, yeah, the ramp of 4680s. There you go.
Yeah.
Good
Thank you, Lou.
catch.
Thank you, Sam. Very, very important. Okay, so we just talked about the 5 things that that's been delayed, but a lot of these things, there's a lot of progress. Okay, here's another quiz for you, Hans. I'm going to show you a photo. You tell me if you can recognize this person.
No.
No.
Are you calling yourself a Tesla influencer? Come on, dude. Caught you.
Yes, you did.
You don't know who she is?
At first, I thought you were going to put Grace Howe up there,
Howe?
but yeah, that's not who that is.
Well, this is Teresa Gutierrez Smith. She's a new country manager for Mexico. So she was just announced as a new manager for Mexico. She comes from an incredible background. Look at this: Nestle, Mattel, Procter and Gamble. And then she's just recently from this company called Rappi Mexico, which I think is a delivery company. Big, important person now on hand. Giga Mexico is starting to start to fly. So these are breaking news that happened in the last few days. And like I said, most people don't know it. Come on, Hans. I just joking you because obviously this was just announced yesterday. So,
And Herbert and I had a chance to talk about this before the show, but her qualifications look exceptional. She's got experience with multinational, working for multinational companies. And it's just critical to have people locally on the ground who know exactly the market. They know what they're doing. They know how all of it works. And that's how we found Tom Ju and all the people from the Shanghai team that have been so instrumental in building the company. If you tried to just import all your executives and tell them, figure out the whole new market, there's a lot of room for things to go very, very wrong.
Yeah, I like the call out with Tom Ju because obviously that worked out very, very well for Tesla, and hopefully Teresa is kind of the next Tom Ju in the making. We'll see how she does in her responsibilities. You know, Mexico's obviously a much different operating ground. It's not as easy to get things done when there's some invested interest from the top, like there was probably in China for Tesla, but definitely a good challenge for her, and we'll see how she's able to deliver.
Yeah, it's going to be great, and it'll create an opportunity to expand south from there. I know a new market in South America was added. Was it Chile? I don't remember. There was one in the last few days where we saw Tesla is now selling there for the first time. And that's the other beauty is every time you think we've reached the top of Model Y demand, another country is added, and it just apparently has room to grow just a little bit more.
All right. So a couple other big news. So obviously FSD version 12 was expanded beyond just the 15,000 employees. And now a handful of non-employees are getting it. Omar, of course, has been showing videos for the last 2 days. What do you guys think about version 12? Is this a big deal? Is it still kind of something you need to wait for now?
Hans, you go first.
So I'm obviously very excited about this. Tracking version 12, really just tracking FSD is something that I've done relatively closely, not as closely as others. But watching the videos that Omar has put out, he keeps just reiterating that it continues to solve problems that no previous version had ever really gotten right. And that right there tells us a lot. It's huge. It means that this approach is much better at addressing edge cases. And this is the very first iteration of V12 that customers have had their hands on. And so it's only going to get better from here. A lot of times when we see a new version roll out, there's actually a regression in a lot of key areas. There may be some improvements kind of at the margins on some other things, but a lot of times it's kind of a 2 steps back and then 1 step forward at first, and then obviously it gets better from there as they improve the architecture. For this to already be solving so many of the other problems that previous versions never could, that means that this architecture wasn't even 2 steps back. It's basically on par or ahead in almost all areas, and we just should see tons of improvement from here. The key things to really watch out for now are how fast do we see it roll out to more customers, and how fast are the iterations between 12.1 and 12.2, and then what's the improvement in overall performance from 12.1 to 12.2. And if this goes smoothly, like we think that it might, based on the way that we've seen a lot of other LLM technology that is trained in a similar fashion has, we could really see massive improvement over the course of 2024. And I'm really, at least at this point in time, I think there's a good chance that Elon could be correct that version 12, and it'll be the very last iterations of version 12 before we get to whatever V13 would be, but that those actually have the capability or the possibility of being taken off of beta and really being something that's released wide to all customers, and that they can actually recognize all of the revenue that they have collected for FSD off of.
I
Word
would
for
add to
word.
that.
Wait,
Yeah.
word for word, exactly what I just said to Brian, but he has a different opinion.
Well, for sure. I've got some concerns. I was going to say on the revenue front, we've got a lot of opportunity if regulatory approval is granted in China shortly. That will result in an absolute mountain of cash coming in. And especially if they choose not to sell it, but to rent it, it'll all be realized right out of the gate. I hope that they choose to rent it instead of sell it in new markets because I have concerns over the long term. I will agree with Hans what you said. From the videos I saw, I didn't see any regressions. And I do like that it now pulls over when you reach your destination, because every time I get where I'm going, I shut it off and it says, we disengaged. What happened? We arrived. We're here now. So I am just concerned that an incremental improvement in a place where it was already 95, 98, 99% perfect is great, but an incremental improvement in places where it causes a critical, safety critical disengagement every mile or so is less inspiring. So I'll have to wait and see what version 12 looks like if and when it actually rolls out to my vehicle.
Yeah, so that's the question next is when is it going to roll out? Martin here has a good question, right? So right now it's very limited. just a handful of people. Omar has it. He's been doing videos, but even somebody like Chuck Cook still hasn't gotten it. My answer to you, Martin, is I think that Chuck lives in Florida. And I think that right now, I'm just guessing. I don't know who the other handful of people that have it. They're kind of limited to specific geographies for at least a week or two. I don't know. This is just my guess. Maybe why Chuck hasn't gotten yet. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
Well, we
there
know-
was
yeah,
one.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry. There was
no,
one tester that I did confirm was in Utah, but other than that, yeah, the California is where I assume pretty much everyone is. It seems like it's a lot of people on the West Coast, and from what I understand, that kind of coincides with information that we had that even the last that we heard about the employee fleet that had it, they were mostly located on the West Coast as well. And so, as far as I know, we don't have any confirmation of anyone either inside the company or outside the company that has V12 on the East Coast yet. That's not to say that they don't have it, but we don't have any confirmation that I'm aware of.
And I appreciate your fact-based approach to these things, Hans, because no, I do, because it's important to say what we think and what we know and to separate them. And I agree with you. I think it's very likely that there are people on the East Coast who have it, but until we actually know, saying so definitively would be a premature. And the fact that Chuck Cook doesn't have it yet tells me that it is a West Coast rollout, because the FSD team knows Chuck by name. When they brought him out to AI Day 2, he was very puzzled because when he came in, apparently, the team of FSD engineers, the kids he called them, swarmed him, and they're like, "It's Chuck Cook!"
Chuck Cook.
And that was a new experience for, let's be honest, anyone. But yeah, he did say that it changed how he makes his videos, because now when he talks, he's not actually talking to you and me anymore. He's talking to them because they're watching.
I've got another prediction, which I like to throw out every once in a while. I think the next thing would be Chuck will say, "Hey, I just saw this vehicle being driven by a Tesla employee doing my left turn. I wonder if it's not quite yet ready to handle Chuck's complex left turn. They need to, have somebody out there training version 12 just to make sure that's going to be okay." All right, so let's I'm saving the best for last. So let's a little recap of what we've covered so far already, right? So there's a lot of Tesla news that's been happening the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So we had the Giga Nevada Tesla Semi groundbreaking that happened, right? We had the Cybertruck being toured in China, which I don't know, that's not groundbreaking news. It's just very interesting. You've got the hiring of, her name is actually Terry, I think is her nickname, Teresa Gutierrez Smith, who's going to be the country manager for Mexico. What else have we talked about? We got FSD version 12 being released, which is obviously a very big deal beyond just the 15,000 employees, now to consumers' hands like us.
I did want to add one thing to the Cybertruck news in China, is that China is not a pickup truck country. They do have pickup trucks. They have domestic electric pickup trucks. I've seen them at Fully Charged in England, where they were showing a whole lineup of electric work vehicles that are already on the market. But a pickup truck was put in with the work vehicles because that's what it is. This is not an electric work vehicle. The Cybertruck is creating tremendous buzz in a culture that doesn't have the affinity for pickup trucks that Americans do, real Americans anyway. And that means to them it's not a pickup truck, to them it's an SUV. To me, I don't need a pickup truck, but I would drive a Cybertruck, because to me it's not a pickup truck, it's an SUV. And this radical design resonates, apparently, with the Chinese people, with the consumers who may be interested to buy it. And it tells us that it could be the first pickup truck that really gets a life outside of North America in terms of popularity and market share.
Okay, so the other thing, of course, is the Tesla bot. I'm still saving the big news for last, but the Tesla bot, right? Big deal, right? So let me just show you the photo of that. this thing came out, and we saw oops, here we go. Optimus Gen 2. We saw that in December. But then we saw it more and more doing things like, of course, the folding of the clothes. But again, that was teleoperated. So for sure, we're going to see something new. So that's, a lot of progress everywhere else. So the biggest news I think that we should be talking about, of course, is the compact car, right? So you guys following that? This was news that dropped last night, and I think it's real. I think most people are saying that this is real. This is Reuters, so that's number one. You have to take that with a grain of salt. This is from four people apparently, four people familiar with the matter. Oops, sorry guys. Four people familiar with the matter that is in the supply chain area, and they talked about Tesla plans to build these electric vehicles in June of 2025. It's codenamed Redwood. And then, hold on, here we go. Right, the entry level $25,000 car plus the robo-taxi. And I'm just skipping through all this. So there was requests for quotes or invitation for bids for this Redwood material to the suppliers last year. And they're forecasting 10,000 vehicles per week. And this news spilled last night. Now, do you guys find it weird that it happened the night before earnings? Do you think Tesla wanted this to be dropped? What was your thinking about all this?
So Reuters I have issues with. They have proven themselves time and again to be willing to publish anything regardless of how outrageous and nonsensical it is. So that's my first problem with it. The second is, so to answer your question, do I think Tesla leaked it? No, because Reuters, if they're telling the truth, are saying that it was not Tesla that told them, but four people within the supply chain. Now, the supply chain is where I have sources, and I can tell you a request for bid that far out is a bit meaningless. It means they might be buying onesie, twosie parts for prototyping, but even Tesla doesn't generally place their orders more than 12 to 16 months out, and we're talking 18 months out with a number as firm as 10,000. That strains credulity. So while I do believe that by the very end of this year, early next year, we could see some compact production out of Texas, even if it's not for deliveries yet, but for road testing, I think predicting a mid-25 ramp is extremely premature, and I don't even think Tesla would know that number, that date, as of today.
And I would shout out the episode that you did yesterday with Jeff Lutz. I was very interested in that conversation. I feel like you did a good job of helping people to understand the process that's involved there and what this may or may not mean. The 10,000 number per week definitely is interesting. And then you don't even know on something, there could be components that there are multiple of them in the car, and so it's hard to even tie that to how many vehicles that is. But assuming it was 1-to-1, that's only 500,000 cars a year, and obviously we expect the production of the compact to be much, much higher than that. And so unless maybe there's one supplier that's going to supply a quarter of the total units of whatever that part is, or half, or whatever the case may be, I definitely don't think that should be something that anyone hangs their hat on as far as what they expect volume of the next gen vehicle to be as well.
Well, the 500,000 for a space as small as as we're seeing at the expansion at Giga Texas is even a little bit high, because 500,000 is a whole lot of units. China is over 9 million square feet, and they only produce 1 million cars. So that's, something 20,000 a week. That's something to compare it to. So the ramp to the idea that Mexico would be even ramping by June of 25 is a little ambitious. We haven't even seen them grade the land yet. They've got a lot of cut and fill work to do to get that to anywhere close to level, and it's rocky terrain, which makes it more challenging. So I think Reuters getting out a little ahead of their skis here. So that'd be interesting to
Interesting.
see.
Love your opinion there, Brian. So the other information that came from this article was, Tesla in recent years tore down a Honda Civic so they can better understand this. Jeff Ludd says, yeah, every car manufacturer is always going to be tearing down cars. That's interesting. Two separate sources said. And then this one, the next gen Tesla architecture is codenamed NVN9X, maybe new vehicle 9X. Will
Times
include two or
9.
more models.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. When you ask Grok what is NV9X, it does answer this way, and it could just be grabbing these articles, these news articles, but it seems to be, a little bit more in direction. Well, we're going to find out today, right? So today is the earnings call, and the top question that was asked so far, as of this morning and yesterday, it was the next gen vehicle. What's happening with? So they're either going to confirm some of this. They may still say, like you said, Brian, I'm not going to say anything about product related information, but we're going to hear their answer on that just later today. So this is going to be quite exciting.
And I'm looking forward to it. I had a video with Matt Smith from Rebellionaire, who we went through and answered as many of the questions as we could and tried to do so in the way that Tesla would. This is a great question. It will not be answered. This is a less great question, and this is how it would be answered. But it's, it's going to be interesting to see what we learn today. Hopefully we learn something, but earnings calls are not for product unveilings. They're not for that kind of big news. They're about earnings. If we're going to learn about a new car, I'd be very surprised if it's not at a new car event.
Okay, so we went through quite a bit of news that's happened to Tesla that I think some of them are pretty big, some are not, but they're interesting. They're progress. What other things you guys might have heard of in the last week, 2 weeks, a month that you think that we haven't covered yet?
Ooh, I think that's a great question for the comments. Guys,
Yeah.
what should we be discussing right here? And also, if you haven't, give it a thumbs up so people know that this live stream actually exists. And if you're not subscribed to all of us, I just don't know what you're doing. Get on that, y'all. Big news. Hans, do you have any ideas on that?
So there's one thing that Luca Greco sent me yesterday, and there was some batteries that were supposedly BYD LFP 4680 form factor batteries that were shown off in China. So I don't know exactly where those are in the product development cycle, if those are just test cells that are made by hand or what the case may be there. But it's very interesting to see what looks like the first indications of actual LFP 4680s. And I mean, one of my contentions is that LFP is likely going to be the main battery chemistry used in the next gen vehicle. There's a lot of back and forth on that. Actually, Jordan thinks that it's more likely that it'll be a nickel-based 4680 cell, at least to begin with, and that maybe that'll transition over time, just because Tesla themselves hasn't got Cato Road up and running to test those sorts of variations with Tesla's in-house production. But obviously, there are a lot of other battery manufacturers who do a lot with LFP that Tesla works with. We know that they purchase BYD Blade batteries for production in Europe, and obviously they purchase lots and lots of CATL LFP batteries. And I don't think the form factor matters necessarily that much for the next generation vehicle, whether it's cylindrical or blade or prismatic or whatever. I think that they can make a pack that will work from any one of those battery form factors. I think that getting the chemistry to be the most scalable possible chemistry is going to override other considerations personally.
So I've got a few thoughts on that. I agree with you that it's got to be LFP. And the reason is scale. Tesla cannot scale 4680 of their own design to match what we believe is going to be the demand and manufacturing pace for the compact car. We need a lot of cells. So we're going to see BYD, CATL, we're going to see everybody building factories as close as they can to these plants in Mexico, not just for Tesla, but for everyone. The picture I saw, I assume it's the same one that Luca saw. Oh, he's in my chat. Hello. looks legit to me. Now, when I was at the battery show, the North America Battery Show last summer, there were a number of vendors who were already showing off what they called viable 4680 cells that you could purchase today, that you could put in an order for and get today. And when you press them on the technical specs, they were less forthcoming, which tells me it's that they just cobbled something together. BYD doesn't just cobble something together, they'll make good batteries. So why would Tesla use a 4680 if it's not their high nickel? And the answer is you could, if everything 4680 is going to be structural, this could be a structural pack as well. Because we haven't seen the 2170s in a structural pack. And that structural pack, I believe, is going to be one of the critical elements to reducing the cost and the weight of the forthcoming compact. There it is. And Luca is in my chat at least, so thank you for getting this picture for us. So that would be the big benefit. And the other benefit for LFP, of course, is that you can charge it all the way to 100 rather than having to baby it and keep it at 80, 90%. So if you've got a smaller pack with less range, you really want to go to 100% to maximize that, if at all possible. And LFP batteries are cheaper.
Okay, the other news I think that we haven't talked about yet is Franz von Holzhausen, who's a chief design officer for Tesla, is actually in China right now. He's being interviewed by Shanghai Daily. He's talking to the team, of course. And the question is, what is he talking to them about? Could it just be the Cybertruck? Could it be the Model Y refresh? Could it be the next gen vehicle? What do you guys guess?
Wow. I'll just say real quick, he is a design guy. He's not part of the manufacturing side as much. So I would love to believe that he is in Shanghai to talk to the design studio, to say things face to face that may be too sensitive to put in writing. That's my wishful speculation. Hans, what do you think?
Yeah, I would definitely piggyback on that. And we know that there has been sayings from Elon and the team that there's going to be some specific design work that is done in-house in China, some other specific design work that's going to be done in-house in Berlin. And so perhaps this is Franz's first face-to-face meeting with that design team that I'm sure he's worked with prior to this. But maybe this means we are one step closer to the next, whatever that vehicle ends up looking like, that design being finalized, and for them actually going over in person the results of all the work that they've been doing here over the past year to 2 years.
Yeah. I would like to believe that is exactly what we're talking about. In the chat, anybody have any hot concerns we need to address? Now would be a great time to bring it up. We've got about 20 minutes left. And and then, of course, later today we will have the news, the earnings report. I guess we could talk about that. Anybody expecting a surprise today in either direction? That sounds like a no to me.
No,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I have been asked repeatedly recently by a lot of the people on X who track the prognostications, and I've told them that I do not have a number this quarter. I may have a number next quarter, but I refuse to do the look at what everybody else does and just guess a different number thing. I try to model it. And my models in the past have just not worked. So until I can find a model that actually produces a meaningful number, and I'm starting to suspect that the Wall Street guys don't have a model either, that they just ballpark it and look at maybe last quarter and go, 2 pennies less. I don't know. Because they're kind of all over the place too. So maybe that just makes me slightly more honest than them in that I'll admit what I do and don't know and act accordingly.
Yeah, I'm going to be very, very disappointed if they don't make a really big push redefining Tesla to be a robotaxi, a robotics AI company. And if you follow every earnings call in January of last year, they made a very important, kind of like concerted effort to call themselves an energy company. And 3 institutional analysts asked questions about energy. The next quarter, Q2, they talked about robotaxi, and 3 institutional analysts asked questions about robotaxi. Then, of course, we're now going to get into AI. What they need to do is really hammer home that robotics AI company. And I just am hopeful and wishing that that's the case. You've seen Elon in the last month or two. Every once in a while, he'll tweet out and saying, "We are a robotics AI company." He's got to do this. That's got to be what they talk about as much as they can today.
Love it.
So the other 2 big news that happened this week was not associated with Tesla. Tesla rolled out the folding the clothes demo that we've all seen quite a bit. But now you've got Figure, who is actually showing, they did this, right, which is they're showing off that their robot can actually now autonomously be able to use a Keurig. And they showed that, I interviewed Brett Adcock, the CEO of this company, and he was saying that, this was a big deal for them because it shows that their AI team was able to train this. He did not specify if it was simulation, it was just video only, if it was teleoperated. I saw that behind in their factory, they are doing a lot of teleoperation. And so clearly all companies are doing teleoperation. And then 3 Stanford PhD students showed that if you just do teleoperation of a task 50 times, you can get the bot to do something autonomously at 85% success rate. So this was big news by Figure, showing that they also can do training of teleoperation. And of course,
when Figure announced earlier,
and also, of course, they also announced a big giant partnership with BMW. So this robotics company has now a partnership with BMW to be able to launch, and they think that within a year they'll have their bot there. They haven't identified exactly which task the bot will do, but it's going to be something in the pick and place, and it's not going to be in the production line. It's going to be kind of in the steel, what is that? The metal stamping. That pick and place is probably the very first logical thing that they'll do. So this is fast and furious, the bot movement. And so we are seeing both Tesla making huge movements. We're seeing Figure doing it. We're seeing a lot of people. So to me, this is big giant news. This is the progress beyond just hardware, right? Progress of the hardware. And by the way, Brett said that he thinks that in 6 months they will be hardware ready, that their hardware would be ready to start building and scaling forward. And AI is actually progressing faster than he initially thought. It was going to take a lot longer for it to catch up, but now it's actually at the same speed as the hardware is progressing. So, and I think we're seeing the same thing with Tesla. So, yeah, any thoughts about that? Those 2 news.
I do have a thought there, is that we're seeing a convergence of these technologies where things that were impossible 5-10 years ago are now the technology's right. When we saw ChatGPT come out, we immediately saw copycats come out that were about as good, close to as good, very well-funded efforts from the likes of Microsoft and Bard at Google. And are they better? Do they have local maximums that they'll hit? I think it was Jeff, maybe, someone that we all follow, yesterday was showing examples of how the latest GPT is a regression. It's gotten worse. The guardrails they've had to put up have neutered it in ways that we didn't expect. So it's possible that Figure is at 90% and Optimus is at 90%, and one of them will be stuck there. But we don't know which one, because with all things in emerging technology, it's hard to spot the winner in advance. We don't always know what they're doing behind the scenes to make the magic happen. And I would agree that just like how Figure is using a lot of teleoperation for training, Optimus, we know, is using teleoperation for training. That's a good, easy way to train. It's slightly better than telling it to watch you and visually understand what you're doing. So they will have very little problem, I think, both of them getting to a scale that will work a little bit. If they're going to be going into BMW's factory, they better be ready, because you get one chance to do this. And if you goof it, BMW is not coming back.
There's two reasons why robot companies are using teleoperation, and the reason they're doing it right now is that they're just battle testing the hardware. They want to know that the fingers that they created, the hands, the dexterity, the ability to grab and hold, that's why they're teleoperating. If you can use the existing hardware that you have now and it can actually fold clothes, even though it's teleoperated, now that they know that that hardware is close to design lock. In fact, we had Milan Kovac, who's one of the leads for Tesla Bot, come out and say that that's why they did this. And then once they have this, and it looked like that he said that it worked, now he said there's a line in his tweet. He says, now our focus is on AI and software. So I'm convinced that when you look at this this photo here of Gen 2, this is as close to design lock as you can. You don't see cables hanging out. You don't see massive actuators that you can't mass produce and scale. This is you got the finger sensors now in place. You got the actuators in the neck. Look at how sleek this looks like. So yeah, there might be another generation happening, but they're going to be smaller tweaks. I think that they've now shown that this is now getting close to design lock. Now what he said was, guess what? That's what teleoperation does. Teleoperation lets you train, and if you do as many teleoperations you can, then that trains it, and then the bot can do it autonomously. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things to point out between Figure and the Optimus bot is that, I love everything that Brett Adcock is doing. The Figure team is very good, but their robot right now just is really in between Bumblebee and the Optimus Gen 1 prototype from a hardware standpoint. That in the interview that he had with you, one of the things that he was pretty open about and transparent with was the fact that they haven't really begun to do the design for manufacture optimization on their hardware. They're still trying to develop hardware that performs the tasks that it needs to perform, and they have begun to think about what it looks like then to go from there to a bot that can be manufactured at large scale. But that's not where they are at in the development. At first, they have to really robustly test, and because they are a startup company and they actually need to have funding come in from outside, they have a lot of validation that they need to do to continue to be able to move forward with the project. They cannot do the same things that Tesla's doing because Tesla has more, they have more resources. They have all the use cases in-house. And so, Brett needs to get some prototypes out into the field, whether it's with BMW. I expect they'll probably also work with some sort of warehousing or shipping company, would be one of the other partners that I'm sure that they're looking at. Maybe someone like Amazon. And he needs to get some models out into those situations before they really move forward with the hardware design advancement to the point where they're comfortable trying to do all the work that it takes to do design for manufacturing. And when I look at Optimus Gen 2, I would say that they're already much, much further down that road than Figure is. Now, that being said, the brains are really the biggest challenge that we have to work on here. Figure's showing off some relatively impressive stuff, but there isn't anything that they're doing that shows me that they're ahead of Tesla in any way. And also from a team perspective, if we look at the picture that Tesla showed us of the team that's working on Optimus, a much larger team than the 70 people that Brett is working with at Figure AI. And so I would say for anyone who is afraid that maybe Figure is on pace to match Tesla's rollout speed, that's just not the way that I see it from my perspective. And I think that Tesla is really in the pole position as far as their ability to make something that is actually super useful, impactful, and their ability to scale manufacturing will be kind of beyond anyone else as well. And so I love to watch Figure as a validation for what's going on at Tesla. and I'm rooting for them to succeed massively. I think there's lots of room in the marketplace for there to be a number of competitors who execute well, to do extremely well. But yeah, I don't believe that Figure is in any way, shape, or form leading the humanoid AI robotic race.
I would agree with all of that. It's so early on. If Figure, Optimus, and 10 others were able to start making 10,000 a month, they would barely have any overlap in their addressable market because the market is just that big and it's so early on. But I agree with you that it's hard to touch Tesla's ability to attract the best people, the best engineers, the best talent for the job because they've got so many applicants for so few positions that they really get to pick and choose. And their team is big. It is a big team and everybody knows what they're doing and they're all in the same location and working on the same project on the same page and getting it done. And when they reach a minimum viable product that they're ready to push out, competing with their ability to scale manufacturing will be a very big differentiating factor. You look at, let's say Figure was ready to go to market today. All they have to do is start manufacturing at scale. Do they know how to do that? That's not a natural talent that companies just have. They would have to learn it, and that will introduce 50 to 100% cost inefficiencies over what somebody like Tesla could do.
Yeah, like
and
you
that's
said,
before you even get into managing the supply chain for that, which a lot of people think is something that's going to be very simple. And if you think that's true, well, try and go manage the supply chain of a cell phone company or of a cell phone, which is way simpler than a humanoid robot. And then come back and tell me that that's trivial. So yeah, that's going to be another large challenge that's kind of left hanging out there.
I agree on all counts.
Yeah, like you guys said, though, it doesn't really matter, right? But it's progress in the robotics field. Can you just pause for a second and pinch ourselves, right? Here we are talking about robots for real. We're watching the development every single week. There's somebody dropping something, whether it's the AI or the hardware, new skills and so forth. So today, what we've done is covered so many news. I mean, literally, a lot of this stuff happened in the last week or two, right? We talked about progress with the groundbreaking of Giga Nevada for the Tesla Semi going in full production. We talked about the Cybertruck being, advertised and shown off in China. Franz, chief designer, is in China right now. What else? We talked about the hiring of Teresa Gutierrez Smith, who's now the new country manager for Giga Mexico. And we didn't show you, but there's a lot of hiring for Giga Mexico now. Permits are approved. That seems to be on its way. We showed you the drop of the new video that Tesla did of its ability to fold the clothes, teleoperated. But then they showed you the Gen 2 just a month ago, right? It's just literally a month ago, guys. It sounds like it was a long time ago. It just happened. Gen 2 is just mind-blowing. What else did we talk about? I mean, there's just... what else did I forget? Yeah, Robotaxi FSD version 12 was launched. There was that rumor about could Gen 2, the compact car, be planned to be released in mid-June of 2025. Ooh.
We've discussed it all. We've discussed everything. There is nothing more to say except where my earnings at.
Your earnings are at in an hour or two. We're going to do a live stream here on this channel. Plus, we'll also do it at Farzad's, and Hans is also going to be hosting that live stream. We're going to be talking all day earnings.
One, I don't think. Yeah. So who knows? Maybe I'll just take a nap.
Join one of us. Yeah, there's too many of this happening now. So it's not. So it's going to be interesting. There's always some good news, or I wouldn't say good news, some important things that do come out of these earnings calls. I do think that their statements, whether it's the forward-looking guidance that they give for the vehicle production, whether it's gloomy Elon or optimistic Elon, but if they don't push hard that this is a robotics AI company, I will be gloomy Herbert. I'll be so sad. I'm telling you now, I'll be pissed. Okay. He has to do this because there's people that are jumping ship trying to go and work for other AI companies. Investors are looking for the top AI companies. They will need to give us an update on Dojo and their supercomputers. They'll need to give us an update on the bot. I know this is not the product demo, and he could reserve it for the week later when he does the State of the Nation, but I just want statements to be very clear that this is how they see the company. Because, by the way, what I've noticed, every time Elon repeats what he says, you do see the institutional investors follow along the next quarter. They will ask questions about it, like I said at the beginning. Okay, so it's working. I want the next 3 questions by institutional investors. If it's not today, I want it next quarter. It has to be 3 questions on bots, and if on AI and bots. And if they don't do that, Tesla didn't do the good job of communicating this well.
And you'll have to call yourself Gloomy with Herbert.
Gloomy with Herbert. I'll do that for a whole freaking quarter.
Very
so
fun.
past. Okay. Thank you both very much. Appreciate it. Join us for our live streams every Wednesday. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Bye-bye.